Hello, hello, hello. Last week I spoke about how the altruism of the English, which grew in a time of ethnic homogeneity, now does us a disservice, leaving us at the whims of non-English exploitation. This week I talk about another naive outgrowth of a high-trust society, our stark inability to recognise and understand manipulative power. How and why are the men and women of the once perfidious Albion so blind to our evil political regime? You see, back in the day, England was ruled by a feudal aristocracy/monarchy. In this day, the power, influence and wealth of each lord came chiefly from that lord's land. Dirtier forms of true power still existed, like blackmail and whatnot, but for the most part, if a lord wanted to increase his power, he'd have to do so by improving his land. Now bear in mind that it was the common masses who worked the land and lived on the land. Effectively then, to improve the lot of the Lord had to improve the lot of the peasants. This was truly a win-win. The peasants worked the land of their lords, in turn receiving that lord's protection, and the interests of both lord and peasant were aligned. This is what the English were used to for centuries. The nobles felt a duty to the peasants, the noblesse oblige, and all benefited because of this. I mean, it's even the old Christian golden rule. Do unto others as you'd wish others to do unto you. Alas, this couldn't last forever. Through increases in prosperity, improvements in technology, and a changing geopolitical environment, a new kind of man rose to power. The merchant. Now, the rise of the merchant and fall of the aristocrats is a long story which can be tracked through British constitutional history. But what's important to us is knowing what the merchant ruler is like. Unlike the aristocrat, the merchant, or might I even say the capitalist, gains his power from capital which is not tied to inherited land. Here again, the merchant too can have other forms of true power, but these are of lesser importance. What is important is that in order to increase his power, the merchant must increase his wealth which can be gained from trade abroad, by extracting the resources of the peasantry, by selling people crap they don't need, and any number of other things like this. Then, in the days of industrial capitalism, the merchant's industry of great scale destroyed local artisanal industry, encouraged people to leave their homes to work in big cities, created great environmental damage, and generally cultivated a society of vice and consumerism. This isn't to say that capitalism has all been bad, as it clearly hasn't, but what must be observed is that, unlike with the aristocracy, the interests of the peasantry and merchant rulers are not truly aligned. For various reasons, the merchants tend not to feel a sense of noblesse oblige, and thus the traditions and quality of life of the masses get bulldozed over by merchant rule. Meanwhile, many of the people hadn't caught up. They still expected their rulers to put them first, or at least take care of them. When we had a rapidly growing empire with rapidly growing prosperity, this illusion could quite easily be maintained, yet with the advent of late-stage capitalism, bringing things like the mass offshoring of industry and the obvious sale of products that do not improve our lives, it has become clearer that our modern rulers do not have our best interests at heart. They will serve us insofar as we remain pacified, but that's as far as it goes. But now, how do they get away with this, and why are so many people none the wiser? If the people of England knew what their rulers were doing to them, I'd like to think that they simply wouldn't stand for it. At the very least, ruling a country that hates its leaders is much harder than ruling one that likes them. So, in recognising this, the merchants understand that they have to hide their power such that we don't even notice they have it. So, how is this done? Chiefly, the obfuscation is achieved through the lie of democracy. In a hypothetical true democracy, the voters have the power. So, given that we are allowed to vote, we think that we have power. Alas, it is a lie. Public opinion is shaped by the media and other institutions and outlets. A permanent bureaucracy ensures that no radical policy is allowed to pass, and every politician with any chance of winning is already working on behalf of the merchant elites, positively encouraged by prestige, wealth and power, and negatively encouraged by whatever dirt the intelligence services have on them. And so, with every politician working for the same organised merchant factions, The same incentives apply, so it doesn't matter in the slightest which party you elect. The only thing having a different party changes is the way in which the policies are sold. So too are the institutions of the state designed to obscure merchant power. My British viewers will remember the struggle against the Quangos to secure the Rwanda deportation bill. However, those Quangos were and are just as much a part of the regime as the politicians, and it was all a pantomime to make you think that the supposedly right-wing government was trying to do right-wing things, whilst never actually having to follow through with them. Constitutions and institutions nominally designed to balance power actually just obscure power, with people being none the wiser. The other thing to note is that all of this has been happening since the Victorian times, likely long before even then. These tactics aren't new in the slightest. However, the difference is that we used to have a grand empire, a rapidly growing economy, a highly civilized culture, and improvements in so many aspects of life, and chiefly of all, we used to be sovereign. In this time, things really were getting materially better, so it was easy to think that all of it was being done responsibly for our benefit. Albion was perfidious, but what did it matter when the English were prospering? However, through 2 needless world wars, the latter at the personal insistence of the perfidious pig Sir Winston Churchill, Britain found herself financially destitute, dependent on a foreign state. What followed was the rapid dismantling of empire, led by cowardly politicians in the pockets of the dastardly Yanks. Nowadays, the once global hegemon Great Britain is not in any true sense a sovereign nation, but instead effectively a vassal under the global American empire. England today is effectively owned by the Americans. Everywhere you look in England, you see American ownership. You shop at American shops, you use American services, you watch American media, you are nominally defended by American weapons, you communicate over American social media, even those brands you think of as British are probably owned by Americans, and even now you are watching me on an American platform. Everything is American. And unlike the British capitalists, who were largely benefiting the British state, the Americans feel no obligation to benefit the English. Our politicians still rule on behalf of capitalist power, but these days those are American capitalist interests, not British interests. Our leaders are still conniving, but there is no such thing as a perfidious airstrip won. The last piece of this picture of exploitation is propaganda. Now, I dare say that for most normal people, the belief is that propaganda is something that other regimes do, like the mid-century Germans or the Chinese. They may even think that propaganda is a tool used by radicals of the other side of the political spectrum, such as the radical woke left or the radical reactionary right, but not their lot. Unfortunately though, it's stronger here in nominally liberal democratic England than anywhere else, and we don't even realise it. Modern people, raised on mass media and in mass education, are immersed so deeply in propaganda that they don't even realise it's there. But it most certainly is. Through songs, films, bad history, artificially controlled politics, and much more like this, we are raised by the regime to think of certain things as good and certain things as evil. This will have happened to some extent in the past too, but it's really only been made possible by mass communication. What this means though is that whilst people may think that they're supporting marginalised groups or defending national tradition, they still hold to liberal priors installed in them by our enemy, the regime. When a guy says that we need more based Hindus and based Sikhs to counter the Muslims, he is a useful idiot for capitalists. When a guy says that we need to restore neutrality to the institutions, he is a useful idiot for capitalists. The same is also true for meritocracy, colour blindness, the marketplace of ideas, and so much more. And on the flip side, when leftists march to defend the foreigner from marginalisation, or say that we need more immigration to boost our diversity, they are the useful idiots of capitalists. What the capitalists want is wage suppression, achievable through the mass importation of cheap labour. So, whether you're arguing for mass immigration for based anti-Muslim reasons or compassionate diversity reasons, all you're actually doing is supporting the merchant elites. But given our long history of honesty and high trust society, the English are naive to the idea that people pushing such policies as these might not actually be honest and might instead have ulterior motives. In other parts of the world, perhaps more used to overt dictatorial BS, they are wiser to propaganda. We instead swallow it whole. We, the English, have been so used to good rulers who had our interests at heart. And even after those aristocratic rulers gave way to merchant rulers, we enjoyed centuries of prosperity. In this time, we were a society that trusted each other often unquestioningly. We treated our countrymen as we would want to be treated, and we expected much the same from our rulers. We were, and to a large extent still are, a high-trust intelligent nation. Alas, our intelligence permits a certain cunning, a cunning once used to benefit the nation, instead now used against us, with our trust leaving us blind to the fact. Now, I know that not all of us English men and women are so naive, and more of us are waking up, but so many do still live in total delusion. I personally live in an area of middle-class suburbanites, and I highly doubt that these people can even fathom the ways our capitalist elites are conspiring to our detriment. Losing trust in the establishment and seeing it for its evil is not a nice lesson to learn, but it is a lesson we have to learn. Move past thy rife delusion, reject thy docile ways, come lion-hearted England, and build a better day. Anyway, that's all, and I thank you for watching. I do have a Discord, so feel free to join there. There are also channel memberships, click join to preview the tiers, and if you liked this video, please like and subscribe. Anyway, I'll see you all very soon for the release of Project Daphne, and remember that he who pays the piper calls the tune. Cheerio.